The perfect killer meets perfect innocence. Cade Shadowbane had never failed a mission. For 15 years, he had been the Galactic Syndicate's most effective weapon. His cybernetic implants made him faster than any human. His neural processors calculated kill probabilities in nanoseconds, and his modified DNA allowed him to survive in any environment. He was no longer fully human, but he was perfectly lethal. The assignment seemed routine when it reached his encrypted datapad. Target: Dr. Natalie Rivers, a former military scientist who had stolen classified terraforming technology. Location: Kepler 442c, a newly colonized world on the galaxy's edge. Payment: enough credits to buy a small moon. Cade's handlers had briefed him thoroughly. Rivers had betrayed the Syndicate, taking advanced atmospheric processors that could transform dead worlds into paradise. She was hiding on Kepler 442c, probably selling the technology to the highest bidder. The Syndicate wanted her eliminated before she could cause more damage. As his stealth ship approached the planet, Cade reviewed his target profile. Natalie Rivers, age 29, brilliant scientist, no known combat training. Her psychological profile suggested she was idealistic and naive, exactly the type who would steal technology thinking she could make the galaxy better. Cade had eliminated dozens like her. The planet's surface looked nothing like the barren wasteland in his mission files. Instead of toxic atmosphere and dead soil, he found green meadows, crystal clear streams, and forests that seemed to pulse with life. The air was clean and sweet, filled with the songs of creatures he had never heard before. Following his tracking device, Cade made his way toward the colony settlement. He expected to find a hidden research facility or a fortified compound. Instead, he discovered a small town that looked like something from ancient Earth fairy tales. Children played in tree-lined streets, while adults tended gardens and operated small shops. The tracker led him to a simple building marked New Hope Learning Center. Through the windows, he could see children sitting in circles, their faces bright with wonder as they listened to stories. And there, in the center of it all, was his target. Natalie Rivers was nothing like her file photo. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore a simple dress covered in colorful handprints. She was reading to a group of children, her voice warm and musical as she brought fairy tale characters to life. When she laughed at something a child said, her entire face lit up with genuine joy. Cade felt something strange in his chest, a sensation his modified nervous system couldn't quite process. He had killed scientists, soldiers, and crime lords without hesitation. But watching Natalie Rivers care for these children, seeing the love in her eyes and the trust in theirs, something inside him began to crack. The mission that changed everything. Cade waited until evening, following standard protocol. He would enter the target's residence, eliminate her quickly and quietly, then extract before anyone knew what had happened. His thermal scanners showed Natalie alone in her small apartment above the learning center. He disabled the security systems with ease and slipped inside through a window. The apartment was modest, but warm, filled with children's artwork and handmade crafts. Photos covered every surface, showing Natalie with her students, helping them plant gardens, teaching them to read, celebrating their small victories. Cade found her in the kitchen, preparing lesson materials for the next day. She looked up when he entered, and instead of screaming or running, she simply smiled. "You must be lost," she said kindly. "The guest quarters are down the street. I can show you the way." The plasma blade in Cade's hand felt impossibly heavy. His targeting systems highlighted vital points on her body, calculating the most efficient kill trajectory. But those same systems also registered her heart rate, which remained steady and calm. She wasn't afraid of him. "I'm not lost," Cade said, his voice mechanical through his vocal modulators. "I'm here for Dr. Natalie Rivers. That's me, she replied, setting down her papers. Though most people here just call me Miss Natalie. Are you from the syndicate? I wondered when you would come. Cade was prepared for many reactions to his presence. Fear, anger, attempts to bargain or flee. He was not prepared for acceptance. You know why I'm here, he said. Natalie nodded. I stole their terraforming technology. I used it to transform this world so these children could have a real home instead of growing up in artificial habitats. You're here to kill me for it. Technology belongs to the syndicate, Cade said, but his conviction wavered. You committed theft. I committed hope, Natalie replied. Come, let me show you what I stole. Against every tactical instinct, Cade followed her to the window. Outside, the colony was settling into evening. Children played in parks that shouldn't exist. Families gathered for dinner in homes built on soil that had been toxic just months ago. The air itself hummed with life. These people were dying. Natalie said softly. The syndicate promised them new worlds, but delivered them to places where they could barely survive. Children were getting sick from the recycled air. Families were splitting apart because there was no room to grow. So I gave them this. She gestured toward the thriving settlement. I used the terraforming technology to turn a dead world into a living one. Now children can play outside without breathing masks. Families can grow real food instead of surviving on synthetic rations. They can build something beautiful instead of just surviving. Cade's enhanced vision could see the truth in her words. His sensors detected no deception, no manipulation. She had genuinely sacrificed everything to help these people. The syndicate will send others, he said. I know, Natalie replied. But maybe I can help a few more worlds before they stop me. Maybe I can teach others to do the same. When Death learns to live the next morning, Cade found himself in the learning center, watching Natalie teach. He had planned to complete his mission during the night, but every time he reached for his weapon, he remembered the children's laughter and the hope in their parents' eyes. Mr. Cade. A small girl named Luna ran up to him. Miss Natalie says you're from space. Do you know about the stars? Cade's combat systems had no programming for interacting with children. His neural processors, designed to calculate kill probabilities and tactical advantages, struggled to understand Luna's innocent curiosity. I have traveled between stars, he said carefully. Can you tell us about them? Luna asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Before Cade could respond, Natalie approached. Perhaps Mr. Cade would like to join our morning circle, she suggested. We're learning about the galaxy today. Cade found himself sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by children who looked at him with fascination rather than fear. They asked him about different planets, about space travel, about whether aliens were real. His answers were clinical at first, but as the children's enthusiasm infected him, he began to share stories instead of data. He told them about crystal caves on Proxima Centauri, where the lulls sang in harmonious tones. He described the floating cities of Europa, where people lived among the clouds. He spoke of the great libraries of Vega Prime, where knowledge from 1,000 worlds was preserved. Have you seen the Aurora Nebula? Asked a boy named Felix. My daddy says it's the most beautiful thing in the galaxy. Cade had passed through the Aurora Nebula during a mission, but he had never really seen it. His enhanced vision had recorded its electromagnetic patterns and analyzed its composition, but he had never stopped to appreciate its beauty. It is magnificent, he said, and meant it. After the children were dismissed for lunch, Natalie approached him. You're not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? Cade asked. Someone more mechanical. The syndicate's weapons usually are. But you have stories. You have wonder. That's still human. Cade looked at his hands, covered in synthetic skin that hid cybernetic mechanisms. I'm not human anymore. I'm a weapon. You're a person who has been used as a weapon, Natalie corrected. There's a difference. That afternoon, Cade helped the children with their garden project. His enhanced strength made it easy to move heavy soil and plant large trees. But he found himself working carefully, afraid of damaging the delicate seedlings. When little Luna asked him to help her plant flowers, he discovered that his cybernetic hands could be incredibly gentle. These will grow into something beautiful, Luna said, patting soil around a small seedling. Miss Natalie says if we take care of them, they'll take care of us. As the day ended, Cade realized he had not thought about his mission for hours. Instead, he had been thinking about the children's questions, about the way their faces lit up when they learned something new, about the trust they showed him despite his fearsome appearance. The choice that defines humanity. That night, Cade's handler contacted him through his neural implant. Status report, the voice demanded. Target should have been eliminated by now. Cade stared at the communication device, his finger hovering over the response key. Complications, he finally transmitted. Investigating alternate approach. Negative. Complete mission immediately. You have 12 hours. The connection closed, leaving Cade alone with his thoughts. He had never disobeyed a direct order. His conditioning ran deep, reinforced by years of neural programming. But as he looked out at the sleeping colony, he felt something he had never experienced before, the desire to protect instead of destroy. He found Natalie in her apartment, working late on lesson plans. She looked up when he entered, and again showed no fear. You're supposed to kill me tonight, she said. Yes, Cade replied. But you won't. Cade was silent for a long moment. I don't know. Natalie set down her papers and looked at him with the same gentle attention she gave her students. What would happen if you didn't complete your mission? The syndicate would send another assassin. Multiple assassins. Eventually, they would succeed. And what would happen to you? Cade considered the question. I would be terminated, recycled. My consciousness would be wiped, and my body repurposed for another operative. Are you afraid to die? The question surprised him. Fear was supposed to have been conditioned out of him. But as he thought about never seeing another sunrise, never hearing children laugh, never feeling the strange warmth that filled his chest when he helped someone, he realized he was afraid, not of death, but of no longer being able to live. I am afraid, he admitted, but not of dying. I'm afraid of having never truly lived. Natalie smiled. Then you're more human than you know. The next morning, Cade made his choice. As the syndicate's ships approached the planet, he stood in the colony's main square and transmitted a message to his handlers. This is Operative Shadowbane. I am resigning from service. Dr. Natalie Rivers is under my protection. Any attempts to harm her or this colony will be met with resistance. The first wave of assassins landed within hours. Cade met them at the colony's edge, his enhanced abilities finally used to protect rather than destroy. He disabled their weapons, destroyed their ships, and sent them fleeing back to their masters. But the syndicate was not easily deterred. They sent soldiers, mercenaries, and finally an entire battle fleet. Each time, Cade stood in their way. But he was only one person against an organization that controlled half the galaxy. The power of hope against impossible odds. The siege lasted 3 days. Cade fought with everything he had, using his enhanced abilities and tactical knowledge to protect the colony. But even his cybernetic modifications had limits. His power cells were draining, his systems were overheating, and his synthetic skin was torn and bleeding. On the third night, as syndicate ships filled the sky above New Hope Colony, Cade collapsed in the learning center. His body was shutting down, his neural processors cycling through emergency protocols. He had failed. The children he had come to love would suffer, because he wasn't strong enough to protect them. Natalie found him there, surrounded by drawings the children had made of him. In their innocent artwork, he wasn't a fearsome assassin, but a kind guardian, playing with them in the garden, reading them stories, keeping them safe. "I'm sorry," Cade whispered, his voice failing as his vocal systems began to malfunction. "I couldn't protect them." "You did more than that," Natalie said, taking his hand. "You showed them what it means to choose love over fear. That's the most human thing of all." As she spoke, something miraculous happened. The children of the colony began to gather around them, their parents close behind. They had seen Cade fighting for them, had watched him sacrifice everything to keep them safe. They had witnessed a weapon choose to become a protector. "We won't let them take you," Luna said, her small hand on Cade's shoulder. "You're our friend." The adults nodded in agreement. These people, who had been refugees and outcasts, had found hope because of Natalie's gift and courage because of Cade's sacrifice. They would not abandon either of them. What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy. The people of New Hope Colony linked arms around their learning center, forming a human shield around Cade and Natalie. When the Syndicate soldiers landed, they found not targets to eliminate, but families to protect their own. The children sang songs Natalie had taught them. The parents shared stories of the lives they had built on this transformed world. They showed the soldiers photos of their families, spoke of their dreams for the future, and asked them to remember what it felt like to hope. One by one, the Syndicate soldiers began to lower their weapons. These were not monsters or criminals they had been sent to eliminate. These were people who had created something beautiful from nothing, who had chosen love over profit, who had found hope in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The Syndicate fleet withdrew that day, but not in defeat. They left because they had been reminded of something they had forgotten, that the most powerful force in the universe was not technology or weapons, but the human capacity to choose hope over despair, love over fear, and life over death. Cade survived, his systems repaired not by technology, but by the care and dedication of the people he had protected. He became New Hope Colony's guardian, not through violence, but through the love he had learned to give and receive. Natalie continued her work, teaching children and transforming worlds. But now she had a partner who understood that the greatest victory was not in defeating enemies, but in creating friends. And throughout the galaxy, people began to tell the story of the assassin who learned to love and the teacher who taught him how to live. It became a reminder that no matter how dark the universe might seem, hope could always find a way to shine through, and that humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons, but in its heart. The never-ending story of human resilience, love, and the power to choose hope had begun, and it would continue to inspire generations across the stars.